Welcome back to a new episode of the Westwolf podcast. As always, I'm your host, J.D. Jackson. But today I am not alone. I have a special guest, someone I have conversed with a lot on Twitter. He's a great basketball mind. I'm happy, very, very happy to have him on the podcast. Omar, thanks so much for joining the podcast, man. I'm really excited to have you here.
Man, my pleasure. Thank you for those kind words. I really appreciate it. I'm happy to be here.
No problem at all. No problem at all. All right. Well, we're just going to get into it. Look, a lot of my listeners are Westbrook fans, some Westbrook stands, things
Yeah.
like that. So just to kick it off, just to make it easy, we're going to start with like the Denver Nuggets and Russell Westbrook. We won't get into the X's and O's on this pod. We don't have enough time for me and you to get through that.
Yeah.
But what has impressed you most about Westbrook's tenure as a Nugget so far this season?
So honestly, if you've watched Westbrook his whole career, nothing's gonna be impressive to you. You're gonna be used to this. This is exactly what you're getting. The only people who are impressed are probably people who watched him only the last 3 years in either LA team. But this is exactly what you get. Like even the box score, it's not the most important thing. Like he's getting right now as a starter about almost 17, 6 and 6, but it's what he's bringing as far as leadership goes, as far as high IQ goes, as far as defense, as far as being able to take what the defense gives him, or if he can't find anything, he'll manipulate it. And especially working with a great basketball mind like Mike Malone and Joker, like it's working really, really well, and it's well expected. And for anybody who doesn't completely understand it, it's kind of like if you have a favorite song, right? So whatever it is you've probably been listening to years on and off, and then you play it on something and it doesn't sound right. It's not the song, it's the audio is messed up. So you go and you just got to go get a speaker or audio, you fix that problem, and the song is back playing like it should be. So
Yep.
as soon as he left the LA's and he got to Denver, I'm like, oh, thank God. Like, let me get back to Russell Westbrook playing his style.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. That helps, right? To just play your
Yeah.
position, play your style of basketball for sure. Um, Something I believe has surprised me was I really didn't quite understand as a star player how much movement Jokic likes.
Hmm.
I knew that Russ Westbrook and Jokic were going to work because of their dynamic, right? He just
Yeah.
has always made bigs better than what they already are.
Yeah.
He's always done that throughout his entire career. But I
Yeah.
didn't realize
Yeah.
how
For
much movement he likes. He's very anti-isolation, and that that blew me away because Russell Westbrook was able to cut like he did in Houston, and I didn't
yeah.
quite expect that. Um, with probably the best offensive player in basketball. Offensive players when they're great, they just want to ISO, whether it's Kawhi, whether it's Paul George. That's what they want to do. Um,
Exactly. Yeah.
that isn't the case. That part of him being able to bring that Rockets rust cutting to the Denver Nuggets, and that's exactly what Jokic wants. Surprised me because when he did that in Houston, James Harden just said it half court, right?
Yep.
And it's not. I'm not saying he's wrong for anyone listening. That's what he
Yeah.
did. He just stood at half court and then let them play 4-on-4. No, Jokic is a part of the cutting. He's a part of that. He has the ball in his hands, and that really surprised me. I just didn't expect that from a player of his caliber.
Even his movement, Joker himself, like you're so used to him, running the offense altogether, and you see after the first few games, it was kind of looking like they're not on the same page. And I think because Joker is not used to himself getting an easy basket. So he's like, oh, once I release the ball, I know it's either in, someone else gonna score, or I know because of how the basketball mind works, this is going to create a hockey assist. So when he sees Westbrook and he's just like, oh, I was supposed to get the ball back. I wasn't expecting that to get an easy layup. But now that you see it, now he's expecting it, and it's working so well together.
Yeah, absolutely
Yeah,
agree. Absolutely agree. It's been a treat to watch.
yeah, for sure.
For sure. Their chemistry is just it's like I said, they like basketball soulmates. You can just see it when they're playing. It's incredible. Didn't get
For
that
sure.
last night, but yeah.
Yeah, yeah. I'm telling you, man, like when you're older and you're playing with those young teams and they're just running through the floor, like the only way to do is you just gotta slow it down, play half court set, and they were not playing, so they weren't slowing it down. And that's mainly with Joker. They like to slow it down. Without him, they like to speed up. because that's one way to offset missing Joker is to go through transition, and you have your own guys with Payne Watson and Strother. You got young and Westbrook plays like he's young anyway, but
Yeah,
that's probably the team that you don't want to play against that fast, especially when Joker's not there.
yep, absolutely agree. And it was the second night of a back to back, and I know they didn't have to
Yeah,
exert energy in the fourth quarter, but they still did play yesterday. Like,
yeah,
uh, so I had that as a scheduled loss on a back to back. Whether Joker played or not, honestly. So
yeah. Coming in the middle of the night is always tough. I know the record was 8-0 on back to backs, but like I was just impressed with that. But coming in the middle of the night, then having to play like in like 7 hours is tough.
yeah, absolutely,
Yeah.
absolutely. Okay, now speaking of the Houston Rockets and how they just have a ton of young talent who is very fast, very strong, and just extremely skilled. Who do you believe is the best under 25 player in basketball in the NBA other than Wemby himself?
So other than Wemby, because like you said, just Wemby
He
is
is,
insane. And what
yeah,
he's gonna be doing is insane. And if you think about like Giannis coming into the league and then building that muscle, like Wemby still has time to grow. That's insane to think about. But I know a lot of people are gonna probably talk about LaMelo and Ant-Man from Timberwolves, Anthony Edwards. But to me, the two people who impressed me the most are Paolo Banchero and Cade Cunningham. And especially because they're playing small markets, a lot of people might like be surprised. But I love their game. I love players who are ethical players. They're not looking for foul baiting. They're not complaining to the refs. So Banchero, he uses his side, he uses length, he uses speed. He reminds me a lot of LeBron James when he was in Cavs. He's just super athletic, but also he's a little bit better shooter coming out of the gate. But if I had to choose, I'm going with Kate Cunningham. So I am a Detroit Pistons fan. I was raised in Detroit my whole life. So that's like a little bit biasness probably. But at the same time, if you look at Kate Cunningham, year four, Kate Cunningham, and year four, Shea Gillis Alexander, they both average the same amount of points. And you got to remember, Shea is getting 7 free throws per game while he's averaging 24 and a half on year four. Kate Cunningham is averaging 3.5 free throws per game while averaging 24 and a half points on his year four. And then Kate Cunningham right now, currently at year four, is averaging more assists and more rebounds than current Shea MVP Shea. So like just not, and it's not only the numbers, it's he's a willing passer, he plays without the ball in his hand, he's a great leader. And like one thing you have to be if you're gonna be like a badass NBA star, you got to be a little bit of psycho. You got to be a little bit of lunatic, and you see it when you're really watching the games, and you see him like banging his head against stuff. He's yelling. He's like, you see that Mambo mentality in his eyes, and he's just like, especially like going from last year losing 26 games in a row, and this year they're fighting for a sixth spot in the playoffs. Yeah, he's really really impressed me, and I think he's just gonna be just a superstar in this league.
yeah. Can't argue with that pick at all. He's incredible. He's impressed me with
Yeah.
his ability to post up. Um,
Hmm.
it's it's much better than what I would predict it to be at the age that he is in the post. That's something that he that has really impressed me with him. Like I watch his post play and I'm thinking that's
Yeah.
man, he's really good down there.
Footwork
Um,
and everything.
yeah, for
Yeah.
sure. So I couldn't really choose. Well, I guess I couldn't choose. I had a hard time choosing between Cade and I like Banchero too, but I had a hard time choosing between Cade and Ant Man.
Yeah.
Um, but Anthony Edwards, man, is he's just ready for it now. And I just wish they were a little. I wish they were better than what they are. He's just not
Better
afraid of the
managed.
moment. Yeah,
Hmm.
he's not afraid of the moment. He wants the smoke, and then like he's just such an excellent defender too. Like he's so
Yeah.
good on defense that I had to give him the nod. Not that Cade is bad either, but Anthony Edwards can
Hmm.
just he can guard multiple positions. He wants to guard the best player on the team. He wants to
Yeah.
guard multiple positions. He can make all the shots. It doesn't matter. He's got the elevation like no
That's
other.
what I was gonna say. His talent is unreal.
Yeah. So I have to go with Anthony Edwards. He's another person like he's in Minnesota, but he's
Yeah. Yeah.
so but he's just incredible, man. And he also like how great he is at the age that he is. Like neither one of these people are anywhere near 25. Kate
I
or
know, man. That's crazy.
yeah, it's insane. And he's box office, and I'm not saying
For
Kate is,
sure.
but Anthony Edwards is like must see TV, whether he's on the
Yep.
court or not. Like he's just
Yeah.
box office, and those are the kind of people like you can really like make the face, and because he has so much personality and he's
That
got the right
charisma.
amount of cocky,
Yep.
so um, I
The
just
cocky
enjoy
and the
watching
highlights,
him.
they match up.
Exactly, exactly.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
to me, it's funny. People had a problem with it. It's funny to see Anthony Edwards like laying back in his chair, and he's disappointed because he's like, "Man, I don't even. I'm young. I just want to play. I don't want to be double teamed." And I'm like, "This is hilarious. You guys think this is funny?" Because I do.
Honestly, I give him points off for that though. When he said I don't want to be double teamed, I was like, come on, man. Especially like he was getting double teams last year in the playoffs too. And
Yeah,
he was making it work. He was making the right plays. It's just something that goes with losing. You're gonna say the wrong things sometimes. He wants to get double teamed, otherwise he's pissed. But
yeah, and that's kind of where I was like, "Come on, guys. He doesn't mean like literally. He doesn't want to be double teamed. He's like, man, I wish when I was new in the league and like they didn't know." Because I was
yeah,
good.
yeah,
It's easy, you know. So I did. Like I said, I'm like, this is hilarious. Come on, you know what he means. Like, so, but people really had a problem with it, and I'm like, he's just great. Like, because I like the fact that him, rest in peace, Kobe, Kevin
yeah,
Durant, they don't care. They're gonna say what the heck they want to say. They're gonna say he just said it, and it's like,
yeah,
I think this is great. I think it's great for basketball discourse. Like, it just said a lot of players, 99% of players wouldn't say it.
yep.
He will. Like, and so I love that. I like to be able to be inside of his head like that, just like with Kevin Durant.
I
A lot of
love
people have
that
a
too.
problem with Kevin Durant being on Twitter, going back. And I'm like, this is amazing. Like, what
I
are you guys
love it.
talking about? So,
One thing reason I love it, like I like that he set it up too, to where now other players are doing it. And
yes,
I'm glad he's not even doing it. I don't know. He's probably still doing it on his burner account, but he's doing some wild shit on his normal account too.
I know.
But it's like you got to get these people in check. They're always with their anonymous sources, anonymous source, and it's like now we hear out of the player's mouth saying, you guys are just BSing. This is BS. That never
Mm,
happened. And it's like
yep,
it's now you guys gotta check yourself before you start putting just some random tweets that you might know like this anonymous source, even if they did tell it to you, you're like, I'm not gonna check up on it. I'd rather put it online or say on ESPN and just I don't care. It's gonna get me some views. But now, because the player is embarrassing you, you're probably gonna think twice before just putting anything out there. That's why
absolutely.
I love Buck Kevin Durant. Like let him do it. Everybody join the club.
I love it so much,
Yeah.
man. I really, really do. Like I said, some people have a problem with it. I'm like, this is amazing. I'm here for it. And it's kind of the same thing with Anthony Edwards. I love that he's box office. He's gonna say what's on his mind, and but he's gonna back it up on the basketball court.
Exactly.
It's nice to see that transparency. Like I don't care. Like I maybe because people who played basketball
Hmm.
for at least competitive, like AAU, college,
Yeah.
and then obviously there's the 450 players that are in the pros, and that's none of us. But if you play competitive
Yeah.
basketball, you know that sometimes you have those team meetings or players meetings where you're like you have to iron stuff out. Like it just
Hmm.
the maturity, that's what happens. And so I'm like, I don't care that he said we soft right now. I'm happy
Yeah.
that they are soft right now.
Hmm.
So when people are like, oh, it's bad leadership. I was like, what team have you been on? Like,
Shoot, what relationship have you been with? Like, it happens anywhere.
yeah. So like, yeah, we will say that. Like, man, we playing so soft right now. You say those things for real. And
Yeah.
so I love the fact that he says that stuff, and it just makes him more appealing as a basketball player to watch. Like I always tell people, like I'm a Westbrook fan. I'm also an NBA fan, and I watch
Yep.
all the other teams. But I watch whatever team Westbrook is on, all 82 games plus play. I
Yeah.
don't. Well, I missed yesterday's game, which sounds like it's good I did because I have to coach.
That was.
But I watch them all, right?
Hmm.
I tell you, Anthony Edwards is up next for me. When Russell Westbrook, I just have to watch. He's box office, just like Russell is box office.
Yeah.
Um, I have to watch Anthony Edwards after Russ retires. It's got to be him.
And, I like what you said too. You're a Westbrook fan, but you're an NBA fan. And, like people don't get it. Like you have to be an NBA fan. I can't talk to like casuals who are to me, they're ESPN fans or they're Instagram fans, and that's where they
Yeah.
get their information from. And I'm just like, man, like this makes no sense. What are you saying? And I'll say this is wrong because so, and they'll just say, well, Stephen A said. I'm like, oh, here we go. Never mind. We're good. You're good. You know what I mean? Like we don't need to go back and forth in this. I get it now. But yeah,
Yeah.
NBA fan. Like you just really got to be a basketball fan to appreciate
Mm.
guys like Russell Westbrook, guys like even in the past, Gerald Wallace and Josh Howard from like Dallas Mavericks from the past. Like these guys, like Andre Miller, people who contribute to winning.
Yeah.
Without having the stats. Westbrook, I love him because he contributes to winning, and he just so happens to have the stats. But it's not even his stats that are what impress me. It impresses me how well and how much he puts his like heart and soul, and he can shift it. He can shift a game with his willpower. So that's why it's so important. If you're an NBA fan, you're a Westbrook fan automatically.
Yeah. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. No, and don't get started on those casuals because there's so many of them. And it's funny because Russ fans, I'm going to talk about Russ fans now. I'm not talking about
Yeah.
Russ stands because they're different.
Yeah.
Russ fans, because they're Russ fans and they watch all 82 games,
Yep.
they're watching all the teams too.
Yeah.
It's just
Exactly.
the team. It's just when they're playing it, but they're watching all the teams too. So it's
Yep.
always funny to see a Russ fan talk to a Russ hater.
Mm.
They don't really watch basketball. And I'm like, it's funny you guys say that the Russ fans don't know basketball. They're the ones who actually watch basketball. Like they're
Yeah. Yeah.
watching at least 82 games. How many did you watch?
The funny thing is, it's like when they bring up numbers, and they'll be like, and it doesn't even have to be Russ. It could be anybody, really, right? But when they'll
Yeah,
talk about corner 3-point shooters, I'm like, man, like it doesn't make sense. You're arguing over like a 5% difference of 3-point shooting. Well, one guy will get you 1.9 threes, the other guy will get you two threes. Like it's the
yeah,
same thing, but what else can they do? And then that's when you bring Westbrook into it, and like he can generate threes for other teammates. He can do so much more, but just anyone, and like whenever the knock on him is one thing, if that's your only job and you're a 3-point specialist, that's where it's wrong. But if your
yeah,
job is doing so many other things, then I really don't care. I'll take that over someone who's just one dimensional, and then on a bad night, which most nights they'll have, is like it's gonna waste my time. I'd rather somebody who will go and get the rebound, go hop on defense, have that IQ and all these other things. And that's why you're right. Like there's NBA fans and basketball fans, and then there's just people, oh, I'll catch the highlights and I'll just, regurgitate what everybody else says.
yeah, yeah. Yeah, all the bad threes and turnovers. It's like, what? Russ had 2 turnovers to 9 assists and he only took 1 3. Like, what are you talking
Yeah.
about?
If you're not watching the game, like that's what bothers me too. If you're not watching the games, you didn't see his turnovers, and it'll be like if pass to Zubac and Zubac will turn because he thought Russ was shooting it or something.
Yeah.
Or like with the Wizards team, there's like this one big highlight you've probably seen it where he had three passes in a row
Yeah.
that they all missed or turned the ball over. And now then after the
Yeah.
game, I remember one time it was to Scott Brooks, and they're like, Russ had like 6 turnovers. It's like, well, he's trying to get people involved, and sometimes if people aren't catching the ball or something. It's
Yeah.
like that's exactly right. He trusts his teammates, and that's how you're supposed to play basketball.
Yeah. Absolutely. And that's all ball handlers. It's so funny to
Exactly.
me how that follows Russell Westbrook. But I'm like, guys, all major ball handlers turn the ball over. Whether it's
Jason
Russ,
Kidd, Magic Johnson,
Harden,
LeBron
Jason
James,
Kidd,
everybody. Yep.
exactly. They
Steve
all do.
Nash. Yeah. Yeah, that's a good list to be on. If you're like, oh, he turns the ball over. I'm like, who else turned the ball over? Listen to this list, and you want to be on that list. But Ant-Man, that's one thing. Like he plays Rudy Gobert, and Rudy Gobert has an issue, gets catching like passes,
Yes.
and he's gonna be like that once Ant-Man is gonna be like that on bad days. They're gonna like the media is gonna shift it because they just love shifting it. Like if somebody has a huge fan base and you can say something negative about him, it's gonna bring the attention, and that's all they really care about. It's gonna bring the attention, and he's gonna like right now he's coming in, and he's the poster child. Eventually, like how they did DeMarcus Cousins, how they do other players, they might eventually make him the problem child. We don't know how it's gonna go, but if you watch the game, you love his game, you love how he plays, you love his aggression, like once he's getting to the rim. And my favorite thing, I cannot stand people like who foul bait. And I respect, Brunson. I respect Shea. I respect Embiid, how well they played the game. But that's just something with me. I just can't stand people who like to foul
Yeah.
bait. And he plays
Yeah.
the game the right way. That's what I love about him.
Yeah, I agree with the foul baiting too. It did drive me insane. But that's the NBA that has honestly been built through the way that game is refereed now.
Yep, yep.
And they continue to, in my opinion, they continue to pretty much encourage it. I was watching I don't know if you've looked at it, but I always like to get caught up on the rules. And I was watching
Hmm.
their area of focus that they just updated like 2 days ago for the referees, and
Hmm.
they're talking about um, straight line path, and which I knew at the beginning of the season when they said that before, I was like, Russ is going to shoot more free throws because this always
Hmm.
happens.
Yeah,
But some of them, like just one in particular with DeMar DeRozan, where he clearly like pushes off,
yeah.
and then no, sorry, this was for flopping. He clearly pushes off.
Oh, okay.
The guy embellishes the push off, but I mean like he pushes up, and they're
Yeah,
like, "This is a flopping tackle," and I'm like, I replied, I'm like, NBA referee. See, this is the problem. This offensive player clearly pushes off at half court in the middle of the
yep.
floor. Like that's an offensive foul. You're worried about the flop. He wouldn't have to flop if you would call these offensive. They don't
Exactly.
call those fouls. That's why it's flopping. So
That
it's
there's to me there's flopping, and then there's selling the call,
yes,
and sometimes you got to just sell the call because the referees aren't gonna do it. It's like the same with the charge. Like if I'm just standing there and the guy hits me, if I can take the hit, I still should get the charge, but they have to fall over and
that's
stuff,
fault.
and
Exactly,
yeah,
exactly.
so that's what's important. Just like you said, like so, I hate that they'll do foul bait, but at the same time they're taking advantage of the rules. But that's just one other reason why I like Ant, Bankero, Cade,
Yeah,
because even though they can do it too, they just have like integrity in basketball to not do
yep,
it.
yep.
Yeah.
Absolutely agree. Absolutely agree. So yeah, so Ant Man was definitely my choice. Under 25. Now speaking of like the way he's carried when they made that cat trade, I didn't like it. Okay, like
Yeah.
immediately I was like, what are we doing here?
The
Um,
analytics said something else.
yeah, I know, I know.
The Excel
So
sheets.
so he the way he's carried, I mean, he's dropping 40 bomb. I'm like, man, this kid is incredible. But speaking of how great he is and how he's carrying the Minnesota Timberwolves, who do you believe is the early favorite to win MVP of the NBA?
Ah man, I don't even think it's going to be a contest. I think it's going to be Shea. I think for so many reasons. It's just their team is so far ahead of everyone else right now except the Cavaliers. But Cavaliers are number one or no, top five in assists. So they're sharing the ball a lot. So I don't think anybody in that team is going to win it. And then when you look at other impactful numbers, you're going to look at, Giannis or Tatum. And the next one that's the most obvious is going to be Joker. But Joker, I just don't see him keeping up his pace as far as numbers go because he really doesn't care about his numbers. You can see in that Dallas game where he didn't play the fourth quarter and he was happy with getting, just 10 points. And I can't remember how much rebounds. I think it was like 12 assists. And that's one thing that's going to hurt his chances is that he doesn't really care. He just wants to play basketball. He wants to win the game and he wants to just chill. But Shea, you can tell he really does care. When they were playing Philly a couple nights ago, it was a 19-point game with 4 minutes left. He was still in the game. And I'm not knocking on Shea. He plays so well. He deserves he's an MVP caliber player. And I just think based on record alone, he's so far ahead of anybody not named, Cleveland Cavaliers, his team. And then when you look at numbers, just Joker's numbers are the only ones that can kind of compete with his. And Joker is not going to keep that up just based on the necessity that his team needs. AG's coming back. Russ is syncing well with them. And Jamal Murray is, he's fluctuating, but I think he's getting to where he needs to be. And Joker, you could see from the beginning of the year to now, his numbers are going down a lot more because it's not necessary. Shea, on the other hand, he's just keeps it going, keeps it going. He's trying to aim to be the, league's leading scorer plus being such a high top seed, probably going to break a record this year or one of the records or be amongst the top, records of all time, with the Bulls or
Yeah,
I don't know. I can see them getting basically 68, 70 wins this year. So I think he's going to win it just based off all those bases. But for me, I do think like the best player is always going to be someone who's not trying to win it and someone who's just playing the right way. But I think just another thing is voter fatigue. I don't think they want to see Joker win another one. They don't want to compare him to like the greats like Jordan and other players. And so I think all those go against anyone else, Joker and everybody else, while Shea looks like the clear cut favorite.
yeah. That's my pick as well. I believe it'll be Shea, and based off of how usually people vote for the
Hmm.
MVP, I know I want to pick someone off of the Cavs,
Yeah,
but I really think it'll be Shea. And the reason is because the Cavs have like so many great players. Mitchell,
yeah,
Garland, Mobley. Like they have so many players where you're just like, oh, Garland carried them tonight. Oh, okay.
yep,
Well, Mitchell carried them tonight. Or Mitchell's able to rest and Garland just took care of business. It's no big deal. So Shea's like clearing away, and the Thunder's entire team is great,
yep,
but Shea's the best player. Like there's
yeah,
not really like there's no competition. So like
yeah,
and Chet's been injured, so like because Chet's great too, but like they're all great players, but it's like it's definitely Chet, you
yeah.
know.
It's easy. It's
So
an easy pick. Yeah,
yeah, so on the cat, like they just have so many great players that can drop 30 anytime. Like it just doesn't. They're just so good. Um, that I think it actually hurts any of their chances that's because
hmm,
the Cavs they basically don't lose like just like the
yeah.
Thunder.
And they play so
Um,
well.
yeah, I think it actually hurts them. It's the same thing with like the NBA All Star. Like I think Garland and I think the Cavs were correct,
Mobley.
but they have like 3 or 4 on that team, but
Yeah,
they won't because they're all on the same team. It's
yep.
very rare. Um, I think they'll get 2 in off of the Cavs. It'll probably be Mitchell and Mobley, which sucks for
Hmm.
Garland.
Yeah,
And then only if there's a reserve that needs to be like someone gets, sometimes someone's injured. I think there's
yeah.
only 3. So I
Mm.
don't think they'll get 4. And I think they're going to get 2. And if someone's injured, then I think Garland would get in if it's a guard. But outside of that, and like even Jared Allen, like I know it's mostly
He's
defense.
doing
He's
his thing,
incredible.
man. Yeah.
Yeah.
I think what hurt the Cavs, they catapulted, right? They went from like what they were last year to how they are this year, and they
Uh-huh.
catapult. Usually, you got to become a household name. So there's always players who probably deserved it a certain year, but they didn't get it until next year because people had to get used to them and get used to that name, especially with fan voting. And I
Yep.
think this year they catapulted. No one expected it. They're probably not on TV as much as they should be. And this year is going to be hard to get them in, like you said, especially with the fan voting and then the coaches voting. But next year, when this is a normal team for the people watching, I think they're gonna get all 4 in, but this year, kind of like you said, like Mitchell is the obvious name. He has the most points.
Yep.
While Allen on the opposite side, he's getting a lot of defensive stats, which are not going to show anywhere. So it's unfortunate that it's going to be only 2 people, probably maybe 3 due to injury or something. But they really all 4 of them deserve it. You're right.
Yep. Absolutely agree. Absolutely agree.
Yeah,
So I definitely would pick Shea. He's just an incredible basketball player.
yeah,
He does have an incredible skill to get to the free throw line. His footwork in the mid range, I know he just
yeah,
always gets the shot he wants. Like
yeah,
always, he's really shifty. Um,
yep,
he's just an incredible, and his defense is also great. Shea's a
yeah,
great defender too, and I'm really happy about the fact that I believe the MVP is going to be someone who's great on both sides of the basketball.
hmm,
I said the same thing when Giannis won as well. Like that's awesome. It's someone who's great on both sides of the basketball because when it comes to MVP, everyone tends to forget about defense. Um,
yep,
but I understand, right? Because you
hmm,
can't quantify defense on a spreadsheet.
yeah,
Right now,
exactly.
every defensive metric we have, it's terrible. Like for
Yeah,
defense, that we don't have a good one. We still don't. So you're like, oh well, his defensive rating that accounts for every player on the floor. He can be the one
yep.
bad defensive player on the floor, and he makes all but they cover for him. It doesn't really mean anything.
Exactly. They cover for him. Yep. That's the big deal, And the coach, the way the system they scheme, so they'll have to scheme their whole entire defense because of their own players bad at defense,
Yeah, yeah,
So it hurts
yeah.
them, but yeah.
So I'm really happy about it. I definitely think it'll be him. Um, like you said, Giannis. I they have their own like they have their own sometimes they go through stretches when they're good, and then sometimes you're scratching your head, you're like, "Butts, what are you guys doing?" They've been better as of late, as far as being a little bit more consistent. When I watch them play, that Dame I like Dame a lot, love the Dame versus Russ games
Yeah,
earlier in their careers. They were always so fun. But he don't play no defense, so
no,
that's part of
it
the
don't help
problem.
either. The IQ over there, like sometimes he'll like you get the worst player on the court to defend. You could just collapse the paint a little bit, just congest it a little bit, and then get back to your guy. But
Yeah,
he's just like just watching. You know what I mean? So and he can hoop, but like
yeah,
if you're that bad at defense, and again, not knock on Dame, he's one of my favorite players, but if you're that bad at defense, you got to be putting up 30, 40 points a night. And it was okay in Portland, but now you're trying to win a championship. You gotta hustle a little bit more. You gotta move around a little bit more.
yeah. I didn't
Hmm.
understand the I didn't understand the Dame. You had Drew, right? And I just
Hmm.
was like, I know Drew isn't the offensive player that Dame is. When they made the move, I'm like, okay, I get it. He's not the offensive player that Dame is, but um, watching Dame play defense and watching uh Drew
Drew,
play defense, Drew Holiday, it's like
yeah,
watching a different sport. That's how wide the margin is. It's like you're not watching, but like that. I'm like, guys, like just screen navigation alone. Watch
yeah,
Dame screen navigation and then watch Drew Holidays. It's like watching a totally different sport. That's how different it is. And I didn't understand. Like because you wanted the offense. And I'm like, I don't think that's what's going to win you guys a championship. It's switching Drew with Dame. Like I just didn't. And I like both point guards. I really do.
yeah.
But basketball wise, like no, that's not going. That's why Portland couldn't get anywhere because
You,
neither Dame or McCullum is stopping
yep.
anything at the point of attack.
Just maybe sometimes lucky, but besides that, they're not really making something happen. Another thing with Bucks, like they should have never fired Mike Budenholzer. Like,
That's
do
it.
you remember Giannis was injured, he came back or he got injured after I think the second game in the middle of it. Like, come on, man. He did so well and he had everybody balling, like I get they lost early, but just the way their team and was moving and cutting to the basket and the players he had that were going off and he was utilizing his players with their from their areas, and I was just so disappointed in them. And then you've seen what happened. Then they had to get two next coaches so quick.
Right.
So that was a
Yeah.
lot of things going on with the GMs with trading away Drew Holiday and then firing the coach and doing all that stuff. It was crazy.
Yeah, it is. That I didn't think Budenholzer deserved that either. And it's always interesting to try to figure out what the heck the front office is thinking.
Yeah.
Speaking of teams struggling, man, let's
Oh
let's
man.
let's let's move over from Milwaukee and let's go up. Let's go to Philadelphia. Like, what is going on with the 76ers? And because he's one of my favorite teammates of Russell Westbrook, what the heck is going on with the 76ers and Paul George, who really struggled? Like, I thought he would just like shoot himself out of it. That's not
Yeah,
the
yeah.
case.
No, man, one thing with Paul George, if you look at it, first of all, if you look at just once he left OKC and he got to the Clippers, just I was trying to see because I took a note of how many games he's missed, but it was basically he was missing like almost 30 games per year up until his final year of his contract, where he played about 77 games, right? So it's a thing with him. So he's gonna miss about 30 games every year. One year, I just found the note, he missed 51 games. You know what I mean? Like he's
Yeah,
gonna miss games, and he goes as his team goes. So with Westbrook, he was playing hard. He was playing a lot of games. With Indiana, when you had Lance Stevenson and you had David West, and you had like a nice hard nosed team. So he goes with the team goes. He's not really the leader of the locker room. He's just a guy who wants to go with the flow. And now your leader is Joel Embiid, who's like super pissed that people were talking trash about him. It got leaked, all this other stuff. He's always injured. He's missing games. So this is gonna go with Paul George. Another problem is they were looking at Paul George and like, man, imagine that guy as a number three option, the way he hoops. When you watch Paul George play games, like he'll have a game where it's like, yeah, I can't see it, but it was like 17 points, 23 points, 40 points, 15 points. Like then a injury, 22 points, 17 points, 30 points, injury. And it's like he's getting 22 points a game. This is with Kawhi. you should be probably getting around 22, really more, but let's say 22. Without Kawhi, you should be getting 25 to 30 points a game, right? He's getting you 22. Kawhi barely plays. So this is basically a number one player getting 22 points a game. Now, on Sixers, what do you expect him as a number three to do? He's really doing what he should be doing, which is like 15
Mhm.
points a game. He has um not just Embiid and Maxi, but he has that French dude. They're playing well. He
Yep.
has Kelly Oubre, who was almost out of the league at one point. He's not trying to just give up the ball and give up his talent. McCain, I know he got injured, but he was hooping. You have other players, and Paul George is not the type that no, let me set the pecking order. I'm in here. He's more like I said, he just go with the flow. And like you see, now that he has this contract, he's gonna miss a lot of games until maybe the final year of his contract. And it's just a toxic locker room right now. And I feel bad for Maxi because he's such a good dude and he has that good energy about him. So I really love Maxi. I really wish it wasn't like that.
Yeah.
But there's one thing that can fix everything. It's winning.
Yeah.
So you really need just to let Embiid do what he got to do. You're playing in the East. There's a bunch of tanking teams right now. The only team I'm surprised by is Chicago. They're at number 10. I do think they're going to sell the team eventually with Zach Levine and some other assets and try to tank for Cooper Flag or someone. So you're at number 11 right now. I just think take your time. Don't try to rush it. You're not going anywhere to like the the fifth, sixth seed anyway. You're going to be not playing. Get Paul George healthy, get Embiid healthy, get some wins together, build momentum, and then that'll fix the toxic locker room. But
Yeah.
for now, they got so much things going on, and it was just a really bad year with injuries, with the new team, with just so much things.
Yeah. It's it's definitely, and people have a hard time wrapping that around their heads too. And the reason why the dynamic is interesting to me is because his shooting, I didn't expect for him to have such a tough time as far as his shooting percentage, because Paul George to me is like one of the best like
Yeah.
shot makers in the NBA. Like his size and length, like he's able to just rise up. He usually hits these shots, and I'm like, man,
Hmm.
what is going on? But people don't realize, because it's very reminiscent of Russell Westbrook in LA, where
Hmm.
you're brought in to be the third option. And you see me tweet it, screaming it all the time. It's 17-7-7. What else do you want from him?
Yeah.
So, so with Paul, like they forget, they're like, oh, well, this player makes 40 million. I'm like, no, but he's the third option. That's the
Yep.
third option. And Russ said himself at his exit interview with the Los Angeles Lakers, like, yeah, I think I was subpar. Like I don't think
Yeah.
I was bad as what people say, but I didn't think I met my standard. And I agree.
Hmm.
But part of that's because when you're the third option, like your rhythm is different, right? Like
Yep.
you're not the first or second. And I'm like, Paul George is struggling in the field, just like Russ did on the field, in that third option role, because it's tough, it's hard. You're not the primary or secondary option. So you get much less touches. Then what makes it even harder is they say, well, they're supposed to step up. I know the trio in LA only played 29 games together in over 120 games,
Yeah.
right? Okay, because Anthony Davis, LeBron James were always hurt. It's the
Yep.
same thing. Like Embiid's hurt, Paul George is hurt. Like they don't get to play together, and it's hard to tell a third option who's trying so hard to be the third option. Like, oh, by the way, you know what? Now we need you to drop 30.
Another thing, like with third option, he's still worth the money because he's not there to get you 30. He's there
No.
to gravitate the defense and attract
Yep.
defense to make it easier. So he might not be getting 30, but Embiid and Maxi, even if they get the same numbers as last year, they're shooting better. The game is easier for them.
Yes.
And then if you do try to double team them or try to clog the paint, now you have your third option who's a Paul
Yep.
George who can drive the lane, who can hit the shot. He has a bag. There's so many things you could do, and that's what people don't understand. Like, you want a third option, he's worth that amount, but what you're gonna see is gonna be totally different.
Yep. Absolutely agree. Absolutely agree. So it's an interesting dynamic there. I hope that they figure it out. I think they're too talented not to.
Yeah.
Just Paul George, Maxi, Joel Embiid, like they're incredible basketball players. So I'm expecting them to do so.
Yeah, I
Uh,
like Nick Nurse too.
yeah, Nick Nurse is awesome. Absolutely,
Yeah.
I definitely agree. So speaking of that, um, the Cavs struggle, the Bucks struggle, The Denver Nuggets lately more consistent, but I still think they have some bench issues.
Yeah.
Talk about all those teams. Who do you consider in the NBA teams you consider to be contenders to get to the NBA Finals? So I'm not saying like who's specifically going to be there, but who do
Yeah.
you believe will get has the chance to get to the NBA Finals in the NBA?
Man, so it's hard not to say Cleveland. They have an easier route because their real only competition is Boston. Like even if you look at Bucks who've been playing better, they're still 0-2 against New York. They're 0-3 against Boston. They're 0-3 against Cleveland. So like Bucks still have an issue playing good teams, right? So if I have to choose between Boston and Cleveland, honestly I'm choosing Cleveland and they're sharing the ball. You never know who's gonna go off at any given night, and they don't care too. It'll be there was a game where Ty Jerome went off. You know, he had the
Yeah,
leading score that night. So I really like Cleveland out of the East, even though it still might be Boston, one of them. But then in the West, it's tough. Like West, you can never count any team out. You can't count out Memphis. You can't count out Houston. You can't count out the Suns who are having a bad year. But if you got three people who can score 30 on the same night, like, and I do think they're you see them like DMPs for a Nurkic. You see, Bradley Beal to the bench. They're not trying to just say we suck. They're trying to say we're gonna figure this out. They already just made a trade. So there's so much talent in the West. Um, but I do believe it's gonna be either Oklahoma or Denver, and I have Denver just because the way they're sharing the ball, the way they're syncing up, the way everything is headed. AG's back and he's getting healthy. The way everything is headed for them is actually getting better and better and better. And if you see even in their defensive rankings, they were 30th while they're still winning games, putting up number one in offense. Now their defense ranking is up there in like 15th, and they're
yeah,
still not satisfied. They're trying to get it to be top 10, but they want it to be number one.
yeah,
With
yeah,
AG back, I think they'll get there to be top five. So I really think the legit threats in the West are really Dallas and Denver. The way Dallas plays together, and everybody knows their role, and that's really important in the NBA. Is everybody know your role? You can't go out and try to say like I'm better than Luca or I'm better than Paul George or I'm better. If you just play together, understand your role, you have a much better shot at winning games. Even if you don't agree with the role, just buy in. Everybody play together and let's win these games. And they're playing so well, even the games they lose they're still playing together. And
yeah,
once just Kyrie or Luca get back, they have that lob threat. When both of them come back, they're so explosive as far as scoring wise. So and their anchors on defense are just really good anchors. Klay
yeah,
Thompson is I still think we've seen Game 6 play. He's just a bad man. You can never count him out, and he plays so hard on defense, even if he's not like the top defender in the league. Just his hustle and how much heart he puts in on the defense, he's not really hurting you either. I really do think more than OKC, I think it's going to be Dallas or Denver, but I would give the nod to Denver just because they have the best player in the world.
yeah, yeah. So I'll start on your Eastern Conference picks. I will ask this between the you said Boston and Cleveland.
Yeah,
Who's the best player in the series?
I think Donovan Mitchell.
Then who's the second best player in the series?
I'll probably Jason Tatum.
And then third, I'm asking you all three on purpose.
I see where this is going too. Okay, so Jalen Brown.
Yeah, and
Yeah,
that's where I'm kind of like, and I enjoy watching Cleveland play. I enjoy watching
yeah,
Cleveland play because I love the way Cleveland plays defense so much. Like I
yeah.
really do. Um, and it's hard for me to choose because that's where my head goes. My head goes, I love Cleveland's defense, and that's going to make it hard for Boston in a 7-game series where it's seven. They get to go home for 2 days and just study Boston again and again, make adjustments. Like their defense is so good.
Yeah.
I'm like, I think Cleveland has the best player, but Boston has the next two best players. so,
And
but,
Derek White is good. Like
yeah,
he's good,
and Derek White
so
is awesome too. Exactly, and that's where my head goes. Man, I don't know because they have the gap. Which, by the way, the gap between Tatum and Mitchell is not far.
yeah.
Like
Oh
that's what
no.
I'm saying. Like it. Yeah, it's probably Mitchell, but Tatum's like right there, and then it's
Yeah.
definitely Brown after that. And so, um, I have a tough time in the Eastern Conference. I think it's only those two teams.
Yep.
Like, but that I can't wait to watch that. I do think they're going to get to the Eastern Conference Finals, and I can't wait to watch that series. That's just going to be must see TV.
I
Now,
do think this is just speculation, man. Just Cleveland's playing so good right now, but their bench is pretty soft. They have enough assets just to get something, for the
yeah,
bench. I think if they do, it's just more because if you look at the team like whole, Boston just plays so well together because they've been together so long. But you know, you got Porzingis, Drew Holiday, and Derek White along with their top two players.
yeah,
But they're and you're right because Cleveland only has four top players, and after that, it's a big drop off. But
yes,
I just think the way they play so well together, and like I said, top five in assists, and they have inside and outside game. So I just think if they just get one more piece, especially off the bench, it should be Levert. Hopefully, he'll sync up with the rest of the team. But if they just get one more piece to make it a little bit easier for them,
yeah,
I still think it's going to be probably Cleveland. I think this is like Donovan Mitchell wants it so bad. You can see he just plays so well. He cheers it up in the playoffs. So that's
yeah,
something that I think you can't like deny like a heart of a champion. So I really think he's going to be probably up there.
yeah, for sure, for sure. Then over to the West. The West is like you said. That's the it's definitely the Thunder are incredible.
Yeah.
I don't want to take that away from them. They're like just and they're young and hungry. Then you
Yep.
have Denver to me, and then you said the one thing, the one team that usually people don't mention. I'm like, guys, the Dallas Mavericks are really good.
Oh yeah.
So when they're healthy, like the Dallas Mavericks are really really good, and like Luca also not a good defender, you
Yep.
know, but they have the wing defenders around him that makes it not matter, and then they
Yeah.
have Gafford and stuff like that.
PJ
They're like,
Washington and yeah.
yeah, so they built that team out very, very well. They just need Luka. I think Kyrie came back. Yeah, because he played
He
second game.
he played one and then he misses I think
He
yesterday's
missed.
game. He missed already.
Okay.
Yeah.
They just need to get their best players back, their best defensive players back. So
Yeah.
they're amazing as well. I lean towards Thunder versus Denver.
Hmm.
Um, it I I lean towards that. Um, the Thunder's defense is incredible, and so I just think depending on how the brackets fall. If the Thunder
Yes.
play the Mavs, the Thunder are beating the Mavs. Like
Hmm.
I believe that. Um, so I'm gonna go with Thunder and Denver, and I'm not sure because I actually do not like the bench of the Denver Nuggets very much. I don't. Now, what I will say is the Strasser was giving me a headache for half of the season, like more than half the season already. But he's been much better the last like 6 or 7 games where I'm like,
Yeah.
that was a good defensive possession. You weren't lost.
Yep. Yep. Exactly.
So he's getting better because he's one of the players where I'm like, you probably can because of his energy. Now,
Hmm.
to me, his shooting is kind of streaky. That's my
Yeah,
opinion.
it is.
No one really
Yeah.
talks about it, but um, because of his energy, but because his defense to me was so bad, I was like, I don't know if you can play him in the playoffs. Like, but now he's been better. He's getting better. I'm like, okay, if he can continue to get better by the time we get to April, May, and June, then I
Yeah.
can see him playing a few minutes here and there because you need 8 or 9
Hmm.
deep. You're not going to go 10, 11, but you need at least
Yeah.
8 deep in the playoffs in order to really be to sustain your level of play. So I'm like, you got your starting five. Then you have Russ, right?
Yep.
Then you have
Yep.
Watson. I love Watson.
Yes.
And I
Yes.
was like, who plays after Watson? I guess
You
maybe
don't put someone. You just give Payne Watson more minutes and that's it. That's it. You tell him just shoot. Don't worry about it. We'll figure that out. He plays so good on just the rebound aspect. That's the help defense aspect. Just everything. He's so
yeah,
good. So I'm with you. And
yeah.
then
I
Julian,
love
he
him.
still scares the hell out of me.
I know.
Man,
He's
especially
getting
in the
better,
playoffs.
but
Yeah, but what scared me is in the playoffs, the other team's gonna be playing their better bench players too. You
yeah,
know? So
that's true.
and it's the bench of the best teams. So
Yes,
he scares me and honestly, even though he's getting better, I just don't see it happening this year for him. I think
yeah,
he's gonna be out of the Denver rotation by the end of the year, not because of anything other than he's just not there yet. But you can see the potential next
Yes.
year. But
Yeah.
like you said, he's a streaky shooter. If that was more consistent, then you at least have another reason to put him on. But it's just all those little factors. I just don't see him getting major minutes. I think that's one of the reasons why they have Pickett out so much right now, like on the team instead of
Yeah.
the G League. I think they're trying to test somebody else.
Yeah. Absolutely.
Mhm.
So I do think that Denver needs. If I have to choose one, I choose a backup center. But
Mhm.
I do think they need. The reason why I do think they need a wing. I mean, like a 6'8", 6'9" wing, like
Yeah,
somewhere in there that can defend. Because I just don't think you can play Strother in the playoffs. And
I
that's
agree.
the reason why I say a wing is because I think they're going to play Gordon at center anyway when Jokic is on in the
Yeah, I
playoffs,
agree.
right? So I'm like, okay, so you need a wing unless you're going to try and play Strother in playoffs versus the top 7 players on the other
Yeah,
team, and he's going to guard who? so
exactly.
like that's he's not strong right now. He's like he can't guard up, right? He's kind of undersized as far as his weight is concerned, so he gets overpowered a lot, and then like he kind of gets lost off ball
Yep.
as well, and his screen navigation is not good.
Yeah.
So he just worried. He's been better at the point of like 1-on-1 because he was abysmal with that as well.
Yeah.
But I just don't think. I think you need to go get another wing that can guard other wings, like
Yeah.
because
You know who he
for the
reminds
most
me of?
huh?
Yeah, you remember Sasha Voicious from the Lakers a long time ago?
Yeah, yeah,
That's what he reminds me of. Streaky shooter, so
yeah,
bad at defense, and he's so confident though. And you should be when you're shooting, you should be confident. But your defense can't be that bad. And I think his whole life he was such a good shooter everywhere he was. He never had to worry about defense. And now
yeah,
he's in the NBA, and now it's like it's really hurting him. And when you have to catch up, you're overthinking, you're overcompensating, you're overrunning, and players see him at like 100 miles per hour, and they just wait and then take that dribble step to the right, and he's gone. You know what I mean?
yeah,
And either they kick out, the defense scrambles, and the defense is scrambling, trying to catch up for what he did. Even though
yes,
he's working so hard, but sometimes it's like you just got to know, like you don't have to go to 100 miles per hour. You still got to like get to them and then just chill. You know what I
yeah,
mean?
yeah.
And that's he's just learning. He's learning. He has too much to learn at this point. That's what I feel
Yeah,
like.
I definitely
Yeah.
agree. Watson's come a long way. I love Watson so much,
Yeah.
man. At the beginning of the season, you can see his potential. You're kind of like, but like he learned like quick, like
Man.
he learned like super fast. I'm like, well, yeah, he can play. So
Oh
he can play
yeah.
playoff.
And he's still raw. That's what's crazy. Like he's so
Yeah,
good already, and he's still raw. And you can see like he's gonna develop more into his bag for like playing around the rim. He's passing more now. Like he's raw and he's good at this point of his career. It's quick, like you said.
yeah, absolutely, absolutely. So that's who we have that we believe are contenders in both conferences. So I'm going to ask you this. Last but not least, I know I don't want to keep you too much longer.
It's
Kept
okay.
you over. We put up the brackets. We got the finals.
Yeah.
Eastern Finals, West Conference Finals. Who's more likely to get to the finals? Cavs or Thunder?
Man, let me say this. I think Cavs for just multiple reasons. Number one, we talked about their easier route. Even though Boston is probably top three teams in the NBA, it's still just one team you got to get through. So that's one thing. Another thing, they play together. They're top five in assists. So it's harder to play a team when they're playing together, and your team could be a top defensive team, but you're scrambling because they're moving the ball around. Uh, then number three, Cavs ceiling is so high, which we know, just like Thunder ceiling is so high. But the thing about Cavs, their floor is not down there. It's still like a good floor to be on. So even if
Yeah.
they do have bad games, they have so many players on their team that could, help defend, help rebound. And I just got one question for you. Like on back-to-back games, I'm not talking about back-to-back nights. I'm just saying like on a game on a Monday, then a Wednesday, on back-to-back games. So Garland led them scoring in back-to-back games 3 times now. Okay. Guess how many times Mitchell led them in scoring in back-to-back games?
I, so Garland's done it 3 times.
Yeah.
You know how many back-to-backs they've had? By chance?
No, I'm not.
No.
No, I'm not saying back-to-back. Like on Tuesday,
Oh,
Wednesday. I'm saying like
consecutive.
just back-to-back
Okay, okay.
games. Yeah, yeah. My bad.
I would assume I would have. I don't know, man. The Cavs
And
they move the ball around.
they move the
I
ball
would.
around.
Yeah. At first, I would assume like a lot. It's Mitchell, but I'm like, well, I don't know. They
Yeah.
share the ball. I'm gonna say Garland's 3. I'm gonna say Mitchell 5.
No, Mitchell's the leading scorer on their team, and he's only scored the most points on back-to-back games once. And
That's
it's still been a whole lot of Mitchell, but in the middle it's been Garland, it's been Mobley, a few games with Allen, who's just a defender, and they had one game with Wade, one game with Jerome. Like they share the ball. That's what I mean when their
insane.
floor is still so high, you know. So I don't worry about them. OKC on the other hand, their ceiling is so high, but if Shea has a bad game, their floor is only their defense. And if their defense is not rocking and Shea's having a bad game, their floor is just a little bit less, just to me, you know, because they have a better roster, but they don't utilize their roster. Their roster is mainly just Shea going in down to the middle, allowing the defense to collapse, and then he'll probably kick out. And if you don't the collapse, he's gonna take you one on one, hit you with the mid range or whatever he's feeling, you know. So that's my pick. Is gonna be Cavs just because of not their ceiling, but because of their floor. And OKC just like that's the problem to me. They have a better roster, but they don't have good roster utilization. You know, they have maybe 1 through 8, the best team in the NBA, but you can't tell by the way that Shea's getting his numbers, and then you got J Dub should be getting more, and then after
Yeah.
that it's a big drop off. So I think I'll have to go with Cavs, and
Yeah.
then plus they're
Okay.
playing in the West.
I know the West is tough.
Yeah,
Yeah. My I love the Thunder. So my heart says as long as they don't play Russell Westbrook, the Thunder, I want you to go to the finals. But they play Denver. I'm like, sorry guys.
yeah,
But I do pick the Cavs out of the two
hmm
because I learned from my mistakes. Like I said, I've been following Russ since UCLA. They were puppies in 2012.
oh yeah,
They were puppies, you know. There's
yeah,
puppies, you know, and it didn't work out. And I'm going to say the Cavs because
yeah,
they're more mature, and I just
yeah,
mean like they've been in the league longer. The Thunder they're very young, and I'm
yeah,
saying I've learned from the past. I'm going to choose the Cavs out of the two because they're older and they're
yeah,
not puppies for the you know what I'm saying. So I'll choose the that experience matters when you're playing seven
sure,
games and the other team gets to build their game plan around you and adjust it game after game after game after game. Your experience matters.
yeah,
Um, and I've just learned that. I learned that the hard way. I'm like, man, we're gonna go in there, we're gonna win this. No, that
yep,
experience matters. And I know Kevin Durant's famously for saying on his burner account, like it was just me and Russ. We can't win with those cats, right?
yeah, yeah,
And so I'm thinking like even versus the Warriors in the reference conference finals, the even Draymond said we had no answer for them.
yep,
None. They came back and won that series, and I was just
mm,
like, experience matters. Like
yep,
it just they just outcoached and didn't make the same mistakes that the Thunder did with Kevin Durant and Russell Westbrook. Like that's just how they won. Like it's I'm like the experience matters, and
yeah.
Kerr to me just showed, bro, his experience as a coach. Billy Donovan, there's levels to this.
Man, Bill Donovan came from college to championship level team. Like it
Yeah,
was tough for him.
yeah, and so
Sorry,
I
you
just look at the
see it even with Boston when they went to the finals and they lost. You're right. They lost against a lesser Golden State team, but experience matters. And Boston
yeah,
the next time they were able to just whip the Dallas Mavericks because, like you said, experience matters. Yeah.
yeah, it matters. So yeah, so that's I definitely agree it's the Cavs, but only for me because of like that. But you made a great point about the floor, like because when Shea's off the court or Shea is having an off night, it is drastically different. So that's a good point as
Yeah.
well. So definitely agree there. Um, Man, that's I really appreciate you coming on the podcast. Like I had a great time, I had a great
You too,
conversation.
man.
So
Same
thank
here.
you so much.
My
Did
pleasure.
you want to plug anything as far as your socials or things like that?
So you can catch me on JD's Twitter, just messing around talking NBA. If you see me there, Tech Talk with O. I do tech YouTube. I haven't been there for a minute, but I'll be back on it soon. But just really appreciate the time. My heart is just all around basketball, so I really appreciate it. You having me on talking basketball. It's been nice.
Yep. No problem at all, man. Really, really appreciate it. We'll have to do this again in the future.
Sounds good. Can't wait.
And, yeah, your basketball mind is awesome. I enjoy reading your
Thank you so much.
tweets.
Appreciate it.
Told me I can't answer them all because I
Yeah,
talk
for
to
sure.
people like, bro, I can't do. That'll be a full-time job.
Yeah, yeah.
But I always read them, and I know you know basketball, man. So I was excited when you reached out and said you want to be on the show. So thank you so much, guys.
Offensive, man.
Thanks so much for listening to the Westbrook podcast. Please hit that subscribe button. I really, really appreciate you guys. Again, Omar here. We'll have him on the podcast again, talking basketball and hoops. So
wait.
thank you guys so much for watching. And as always, please hit that subscribe button. I'll see you guys in the next one. Peace.
Peace.
Okay.